From the New York Times, Daniel Penny is acquitted in the death of Jordan Neely on subway. My friends, the world is healing. Mr. Penny choked Mr. Neely in a minutes-long struggle on the floor of the F train. The case reflected the pathologies of post-pandemic New York. Well, we've got this from Nick Sorter. Daniel Penny is speaking out for the first time, and he and his lawyers, as they celebrate a massive victory, he was trying to help people on the train, and he did. Here's the video of the man in question celebrating.
How you feeling?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
He's feeling good. He's feeling good. He's feeling good.
He's hammered.
What's up? Come together.
I would be.
Same.
How's it going? How's it feel?
Feels great. He's finally got the justice he's deserved.
Did you think it was going to happen?
Sorry?
Let me get away from the camera.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
This should have happened probably on day one, but the point thing is it happened. So we can't control the timing of it, but we can certainly savor the outcome.
And why do you think it was not guilty?
That's good. That's that guy.
Well, he's not guilty on a few different reasons. Because his actions were justified. He was trying to help people on that train, and he did. And number two, he's not responsible for the death because the death was caused by a lot of other factors that we tried to present with a lot of clarity, such as the K2 abuse and the sickling crisis, and cardiac issues. Not to mention the paranoid schizophrenia, which only added to that impact. So I'm just glad that the jury was able to truly evaluate that as a potential cause of death, and that Danny was justified in the actions that he took.
Yeah, he was. And so not guilty. Now, leftists are already calling for riots, calling for violence. BLM supporters are posting videos on TikTok saying that they have to get violent now. Much similar, I would say it reflects very much so the United Healthcare CEO's statements on violence. And I'm surprised we haven't heard of riots breaking out in New York already, but who knows?
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the general culture has shifted so much the past 4 years that there's not really the same appetite to listen to those leftists out there as there was before. And there's more of an appetite, I would argue, too, probably by NYPD to just have less tolerance for this type of stuff. I think you might see some isolated incidents, but this whole situation is kind of a indicator of how much our country's changed since 2020, because I think if that happened in 2020, you probably get a conviction, most likely. Yep. I think the situation, the political pressure on the jurors was significantly less than it would have been 4 years ago. That's number one. And then number two, I just think, again, the appetite to riot from a lot of these big cities is just not there anymore. I mean, look at what happened when Trump won the election. Nothing happened, right? Yeah. Their appetite to do this stuff is kind of dead, and I think that's a good thing.
I'm not sure why. I as a guess, I would say because the without the BLM agitprop, the propaganda that went along with the initial 2020 riots and stuff like that, without that kind of stuff, it doesn't really motivate the people. But I wonder if people don't have the appetite because a lot of the people that had bought into the idea that thousands of black men per year were being killed, thousands of unarmed black men were being killed by the cops every year, which was blatantly false. I wonder if the average kind of activist person was made aware that was just not even remotely close to true. And so the narrative on the ground that there was that even LeBron James was saying was just totally false,
Mm-hmm. The shutdowns from COVID made people crazy. And I wonder if people even are able to recognize how crazy the world had gone for those 3 years.
Well,
and it was like served as an inoculation of the consciousness. People have come out of that with this new skepticism and lack of desire for tyranny. Like they are just like looking for a reason to right the ship. And this is an example.
I mean, I was shocked when we saw that video of Taylor Lorenz on Piers Morgan. She wasn't wearing a mask. She thinks
just
she
raw
is.
dog in the
Her
air.
immune system has improved.
She?
Yep.
No, I mean,
getting stronger.
She is getting people sick.
Yeah.
What if someone in the other unit at her apartment complex breathes?
Yeah.
No, and she's
What if they got a scratch?
talking like,
Well, but you're right. She wasn't
spewing her
wearing a
disease.
mask. She
I know,
wasn't
how
wearing a
dare
mask.
she?
Good for you, Taylor. You look great without a mask. You
No,
don't
she's
need it
long
anymore.
argued she has a right to not wear a mask in private settings. It's only in public settings she has to wear a mask because she went insane from COVID.
Can't believe
Yeah,
it.
COVID.
Dude, look, I am done with this. If I go to a restaurant and I see someone wearing a mask, nope. I'm
At
gonna
the
be
airport,
like,
it's very
that person will
strange.
not serve me.
It used to be like I'd see the occasional, I don't want to like stereotype, but it would sometimes be an Asian person. Not always, but it was like common in Japan or in China to wear masks.
If you go to Japan, that's very, very normal. If
Pre-2014.
you're sick, so that way you don't like sneeze or whatever. And honestly, when COVID first hit, before it became like a thing, I was like, well, if it would be kind of cool if people in America started wearing masks if they're sick, so that way they don't sneeze, because it's kind of cool in Japan. And then it became a political thing, and I'm just like, well, I don't want masks at all.
And also, if it was even serving the process like the wrong mask, it would just be like socially, just like virtue signaling, like, hey, look at me. And it's like, dude, that piece of cloth is not only carrying fecal, like putrefactive bacteria on the inside of it, it's not sealing it right.
In Japan, they don't wear it trying to seal anything. They're just like, so that way they don't like sneeze and get anything on people. So that way they don't because if you sneeze and you sneeze in your arm, you're sneezing onto your clothing, So if you have the mask on and you sneeze, then like you could go ahead and take it off and toss it and put another one on, like use it as if it's a tissue that's already on your face.
I think the reason I even brought that up is because you mentioned the riots in 2020. I think those were like a direct result of the shutdowns from the COVID response, the government overreach and locking. They didn't lock people. Some countries did lock people in their homes, literally.
But in New York, these apartments are microscopic. Some like a lot of people, like the friends that I had, it's a studio bedroom the room is 20 feet by 20 feet in a lot of these places. And it's like your kitchen is, you have a kitchen, that's it. It's a kitchen with a TV and a couch in it. You're locked in there every single day. Sure, you can technically go outside, but there's no restaurants, there's no stores, you can't go anywhere. What do you do? So when the riots happened, people's brains snapped and they went out and they went nuts. With all of that being said, this time, Daniel Penny was acquitted. I see this as a major victory. There still is a concern, I brought it up last week when they tried pulling this scheme, that already this sends a signal they will use the procedure as the punishment. Mm-hmm. But this still shows a trend in a positive direction where I think in a couple of years we do see an end to this type of psychotic behavior. And hopefully we return back to a society that says you have responsibility in your life.
It is. He's such a hero. I will say that, man. Daniel Penny, what he did, if it's true, what happened, and it seems like it was, that he protected people on the subway. That this guy was terrorizing people on the subway, literally domestic terrorism at its finest, saying he was going to kill someone and go to jail for it. And then 3 guys had to hold him down, including Daniel Penny and 2 other dudes who never really got pinned in this somehow. And everyone was turned out unharmed except for the guy with paranoid schizophrenia who was on K2, which is like spice. It's a type of synthetic cannabinoid. It's nasty stuff. I've had it before. It is nasty stuff.
The sad reality, though, is like at what point does he get his life back? And that's still an open question because just a couple of days ago, actually, I believe Jordan Neely's father is now trying to sue him. So now they're trying to take him to civil court. I don't think he's a guy with a lot of money to be paying all these legal fees. And then, a lot of civil courts in this country are totally broken. So I would say even if he didn't get the criminal conviction, he might get the civil one. How's he going to pay that out? So, we'll see. But yeah, definitely this is a big step. I kind of thought I saw this as a crossroads moment for the city of New York because it's like, do they want to decide to go the full blown, I know we don't want to use the word anarchy, but you know what I mean, route, or do they want to start taking steps in the right direction? And I think what you're seeing in a lot of Democrat cities in this country, I recently, I went to Detroit, for instance, over the summer for the Turning Point USA event, and I was totally expecting Detroit to be like everything I imagined, and it was the opposite. Like, it was actually relatively clean. It was nice. I think even in these Democrat cities, even if they're not voting Republican nationally or even locally, you are seeing an increased appetite even from Democrat voters to want to kind of fix things. Look at the anti-crime proposition in California that passed with 70% this time around. And that's a good thing because I think revitalizing our cities is probably one of those steps needed to take the country back as a whole.
What's the anti-crime prop in California?
So remember how California, they were doing the $950 thing where if you steal under $950, they're not going to go after it. So basically that made it so, now those thefts are going to be prosecuted again. And that
retroactively?
I don't think retroactively, but
okay,
I think going forward.
Restoring.
Yeah.
So I had this idea when that happened. I said
70%, by the way, in a Democrat state, like everyone voted for it. Yeah.
When that happened, I said, here's an idea. Make everything in the store cost $1,000 and give a discount to people when they buy it. Someone did that.
Really? That's
Someone
awesome.
actually did it. They put everything in the store is $950, discount for honest customers.
$1,000.
So that way they could get it prosecuted. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Man, that's a great example of society becoming normal again. They're just like, violent crime, and that's theft is considered a violent crime. It's no good. It does not stand, and that is the
you know what
of society.
You know I want to say to everybody here. Take a look at your investment accounts for those that have them, because I'm going to say this. In 2020, when we were all for Trump, looking at all these problems, we were years ahead of the normies.
Oh, yeah.
No disrespect, normies, but we were years ahead of them. 2024 comes around, they catch up, Trump ends up winning for much of the same reason. The Wall Street Journal says the gender ideology stuff was a sleeper issue. Abortion ended up mattering. The democracy ended up mattering, but in the direction towards Trump. When polled, if there was if democracy was at risk, more people voting for Trump said it was than Democrats, meaning the lawfare against Trump was viewed. Now, in 2020, we all knew this stuff. We all knew the impeachment was a scam. We all knew that wokeness was bad. We were 4 years ahead of everybody. So think about where we are now and where we will be in 4 years.
I should make a little clarification. I said that theft is a violent crime, and technically it's not. Even though stealing someone's livelihood and taking away their food could be sort of like a passive form of violence. I mean, if you
it's literally not a violent crime if depending on what you're doing and how you're stealing, right? So like mugging is a violent crime, but larceny is not a violent crime.
Robbery, aggravated.
Actually, not
robbery. So
larceny
robbery is a violent crime. Is that considered?
If you're robbing a person,
but not a store.
yeah.
Is that even considered robbery if you go into a store and take?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Robbery is a violent crime that involves taking property from another person using force or threat of force. So
yeah, so if you go into a store and take stuff off the walls,
that's shoplifting. That's not robbery.
Right.
That's shoplifting.
Yeah, that's usually considered theft or even.
If you have a mask on, though, is there considered threat?
It's still shoplifting.
I think that'd be
theft?
described as petty theft.
Which is a form of violent crime, theft?
No.
Look, I'm trying, but maybe there's a reason it's not.
Robbery.
Yeah, because you're not
Did you
actually
see the video
violence
of the woman in there like knocking all the bottles of alcohol off the thing, and the guy just goes up to like the owner of the store and just decks her in the face? People are like, someone had to do it, and I'm like,
or the little girl doing it.
What's that?
And there's that little girl smashing everything in the store, and
Walmart.
they're going, don't do it, stop filming her, leave her alone. You don't know what she's going through. And I'm like, look, I don't think you should hurt the child, but any adult could literally just grab her arms and hold her so she stops and say, look, I'm not trying to hurt you, but you got to stop. But I got to be honest, I ain't doing it. How many of you guys would walk up to a little black girl who was smashing up a store and grab her arms to stop her from doing anything?
Not for a
Probably
store.
get charged with like murder.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to laugh at the store and be like, look, man, this is why I don't live in these cities. Y'all vote for this stuff. And then what I hear from a lot of these people, like a lot of conservatives who are like back the blue, I'm like, dude, you know those cops would arrest you. Those cops arrested Daniel Penny. Those cops arrested Trump. How is it that Donald Trump is falsely charged with these BS charges and the cops are like, don't care, Trump, you're going to jail?
Yeah,
how come they weren't like, I refuse to be party to whatever it is you're doing?
The arrest of Daniel Penny is wild. Like, I think it was actually his interrogation that got him exonerated, and there's probably other evidence too. But once that got released, I don't know if we've ever played it on the show. It's pretty fascinating.
Why wasn't that every single cop saying, I will not be party to whatever it is you're doing, Daniel Penny? And they said, then it's your job. Okay. Because these cops are not good people. I'm not saying all cops are bad. I'm not saying all cops are not good people. I'm saying the cops in New York who are part of a mechanism where the guy at the top is appointed by a Democrat to enact Democrat policies, when they illegally stole, when de Blasio stole taxpayer money to paint Black Lives Matter in front of the Trump Tower.
Yep.
And then put 27 police officers to guard it. All of that was illegal, and those cops don't care. I have no sympathy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand that ultimately police, because the argument I always hear, the counter argument I always hear to you, Tim, is like, well, they don't really agree with it, though. You know, don't you know most cops are Republicans? They're in agreement. But it's like, at the end of the day, what is their job? Their job is to be enforcement mechanisms of the state. And if the state is run by the people we don't like, then they're going to be doing the things we don't like. And so it's it's not an animosity thing towards personal police officers, but as an institution, yeah, they are against us in a lot of these areas.
Imagine a couple of crime family members mercilessly beat a child with an inch of his life. And then when you go to arrest him, he says, hey, don't look at me, like the boss told me to do it. It's not my fault. And they went, he's right. The boss told him to do it. I mean, he didn't want to do it, but they told him to, so he had to. So he's not criminally responsible. In what reality do we say police officers are not responsible for the actions they take? It's insane to me. And I know people are going to say, like, Daniel Penny was charged with a crime. Oh, spare me, dude. Anybody with eyes saw that Daniel Penny did not commit any crimes.
Yep.
And now he had to go through all this to justify or to prove it is insane. All that needed to happen was for each and every one of those cops to be like, boss, I ain't charging this guy. He didn't do anything wrong. You find somebody else, because I'm not going to be dealing with the aftermath of this. So right now, I got people on Twitter, and they're saying the prosecutor should go to jail. I think every cop involved in his detainment should go to jail too. I'm done. When Cronister got the nomination for the head of DEA, and then the story broke. The story we already knew, but the story went wild, that he had arrested a pastor for trying to host church services during COVID lockdown. He got denied and rejected from that position. Everybody was willing to line up against a sheriff for arresting a pastor. Where are the same calls for the cops who were facilitating the injustice against Daniel Panny?
I think if cops got arrested for arresting someone that was found innocent in hindsight, they'd stop arresting people, which could be a big problem because there are a lot of people they're not.
It is better
really
that 10 guilty
them.
persons escape than one innocent person suffer. And in this regard, I think everybody saw the video and knew what happened and said, we will not be a society that will penalize one man of three. 3 guys detained Jordan Neely. Only 1 got charged. We're not talking about an issue where we heard a story where 2 guys got into a fight and someone died. What do? If a cop arrests those people, totally get it. We're talking about Daniel Penny as one of 3 people who subdued a man, and only he got charged. And I will say it's because he's white. The other guys,
he's tall and beautiful. Yeah, he got. And
the
pariah.
other guys who held down Jordan Neely got nothing, no charges. This was a pure perversion of justice. And the cops who knew all of these details and said, "What happened?" A guy threatened to murder people, said he wasn't scared to go to jail. He was on drugs. They said they wouldn't render advanced aid because they were concerned of getting AIDS. I'm not exaggerating. They said they gave him chest compressions but wouldn't give him mouth-to-mouth because they didn't want to get AIDS. That could be a contributing factor to why he died. Then he dies. Daniel Penny gives an interview where he doesn't even know the guy died and said, look, I'm not trying to kill the guy. He's just threatening people, so I held him down. 2 other guys held him down, and they did not get charged. Now the narrative from Black Lives Matter is that it's racist oppression, ignoring the fact that 2 other non-white men were subduing Jordan Neely as well, stopping him from fighting back. This was clearly political, racist BS, and every single cop who said, I am still going to violate the rights of Daniel Penny should be charged.
There's people that are saying that self-defense is now legal in New York. I don't care what anyone says. Like, that is still a risk. Like, Daniel Penny's been in custody and dealing with this for the past 8 months or something like that.
And you could argue still he got lucky in the sense that he didn't get convicted. Yeah,
it's not legal. You need to get serious changes in the DA's office and possibly or probably in the police force as well before you can say, okay, self-defense is legal. And you probably need some changes to your,
You see you saw that other guy who stabbed somebody on a train and didn't get charged? That was a big part of the story. There was another man who was
same
black.
situation, but he was black.
Yep. Yeah. A guy was threatening people, confronted him. He somehow stabbed him. The guy died. No charges. And so that's what I'm talking about. The cops had no problem being like, okay, this guy stabbed and killed the guy. We're not going to do anything here. And I understand people are going to say, yeah, it's the leadership, Tim. And I'm like, okay, so if you're a cop and you're looking at 3 men subduing a guy and they say only charge the white guy and you go, you got it, boss. Oh, you're a bad person. You're evil. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. You should be like, hey, man, find somebody else. I ain't doing it.
Well, I guess the counter argument to that is usually like, well, how are they going to feed their family, right? So like my take on this has always been, I understand that the police have a job to do, whatever, but it's just like, I'm not going to sit here and say I back the blue or wave that, a police flag when it's like, well, it's kind of complicated, right? Because it's like, yeah, I understand you guys have a job to do, but still objectively you're enforcing tyranny. So I'm not anti-police, but don't expect me to like give you a medal for arresting,
No, I think they should be arrested. I think they should be criminally charged. I think violation of rights. I think, you want to make an argument about qualified immunity, that stuff. The only way things like this stop, you want a virtuous society, it's a cultural shift. We need to say we do not tolerate.
But in a city like New York, couldn't BLM do that in the reverse?
Well,
right?
yeah. Could Daniel Penny file a civil suit against the city of New York for false, for some sort of violation?
I think that's the angle.
The issue ultimately becomes why my principal position is I'm not going to live in cities like that, and I retreat to you get what you deserve, because you're correct. The leadership of New York has created the situation. I personally think they're in violation of the Constitution, and Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, whoever should launch. They announced Harmeet Dillon as the US attorney for civil rights. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that she can pursue violation of rights and go after people in New York for what they did to Donald Trump. I'm hoping the federal government can say, I don't care what the stupid crackpot morons in your city voted for. There is a constitution in this country, and you cannot get away with stealing taxpayer dollars to paint an ideological message in your street and then fund 27 cops to do that. That is stealing public funds. There needs to be federal investigations for these perverted actions in government. So whatever, man. That's why ultimately I just say you are right, Vince, that the left and BLM, this happened because they demand it and the city is scared of them and they don't care. So I just choose not to live there. And the people who want to live there, when these things happen to them, I say, guys, if you support these cops and say the cops should be allowed to do this, the people who are chatting saying, don't blame the cops, Tim, that's fine. When the cop comes and cracks you over the skull and says, my boss told me to do it, I won't defend you. I don't care. And you'll tell me it's probably not going to happen. You're probably right. It won't happen.
Well, that's why my position on the police is kind of like almost neutral, right? Because it's like, I understand my main gripe is with the state, but they're enforcers of the state, so I'm not going to really love them for it or hate them for it.
It's like hating the club when it's the guy swinging the club. Like the cop's supposed to be a neutral arm of the government, supposed to, but it's a human being, and they have discernment. They have the ability to not arrest a guy if they think it's time to not arrest the guy, and they have in the opposite. They're supposed to arrest a guy if they think, the situation deems it. So they're not truly neutral, but they're supposed to be as close to it as possible, I guess.
Police, I don't know that police are supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to carry out the law, and the law's not really neutral.
But I think the problem is
they are supposed to be neutral. They're supposed to be neutral arbiters of the law, but they're not, because they're appointed by Democrats in big cities.
That's true.
And there you go.
They're like neutral arbiters of a non-neutral legal system. So net non-neutrality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that maybe they're supposed to be, but the police haven't been neutral in quite a long time.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by they're not neutral?
The police are gonna be like, well, I'll let this guy off today. I feel like how they feel. They're gonna if you are charismatic, they'll let people off.
But politically neutral, in reference to what the police are supposed to do, is that they're not going to say, I arrest Democrats and let Republicans go, or vice versa.
No, but I think that police will make assumptions based on those things, and they'll say, well, this guy, I don't like the way this guy looks or whatever and stuff like that. So I think that's it's just
fair
human.
point.
Maybe it's just their fact that they're human, but they're going to have biases.
I think I'd rather have biased human cops than neutral robot cops that just do exactly what the politicians want them to do. I feel safer with the human element being like, this one's gone too far, dude. Like, you did see the Nazi regime fall in line. It was a terrifying example of what humans can do.
They're largely amoral people in like New York City. And I'm not saying immoral. I say amoral, meaning a cop is told, Daniel Penny, they know exactly what happens. A guy was threatening to murder a bunch of people. Those people thanked Daniel Penny for saving their lives. 2 other men assisted Daniel Penny in subduing the man. I want you to go arrest Daniel Penny, not those 2 other men, despite the fact they did the same things. And everyone said Daniel Penny saved their lives. We don't care. He's going to go to prison. The cop goes, you got it, boss. He has no moral structure whatsoever.
Yeah, I think if the guy that was choked, Jordan Neely, had survived, they wouldn't have charged Daniel Penny. They wouldn't have done it.
Of course.
But it was because of the death. It was like an emotional charge.
It's because BLM has political power and the Democrats appoint the police, and the police are like, shut up and do as you're told. And the beat cops are amoral. Again, I'm stressing, I'm not saying they're immoral. I'm saying they lack morals. They stand there and say, that's the system. Daniel Penny, you're going to jail. And I'm like, if you had a moral structure, you'd say, it is not within my power to arrest this guy. They're cheering for him, guys. What are you talking about? They also have no scruples and no fear. There's no community. Largely what I see as a problem with the police departments is that you go to a small town, what happens? Very small town, the way it used to be back in the day. I'm talking hundreds of years ago.
The cops?
The cop says, he pulls you over, Ian, and he goes, Ian, what are you speeding for? I'm going to see your dad at the bar tonight, and I got to tell him I caught you speeding. I'm going to give you a ticket. What is he going to say to me? And you're going to go, don't tell my dad. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to tell you what. I'll let you off with a warning, but for the love of all that's holy, you stop speeding. Otherwise, I'm going to your dad. And that's how society was.
It's also, there's no fear of there's much less fear of psychotic dudes wrapped up on pharma, or whatever crazy drugs, armed. It's like in a small town, most people are just either they're out drinking or that's it.
They know who the crazy guy is, and he's in the drunk tank all the time. So in big cities, the cop just says, dude, I don't know you. I don't care. I got kids. Bye. And so we end up with an amoral society. People talk about how we want to fix these things. That's why I say abortion shouldn't be illegal. It should be unthinkable. That's Ron Paul's quote, not mine. The conservatives were like, well, let's ban it. And I'm like, you're not going to change the fact that these far leftists are going to do weird, wacky, crazy things. They're going to keep doing it. What we need is to build a culture of shame. Shame is a good thing. We need to bring shame back, and we need to tell these nasty, like, I don't care if it's a man or a woman, the whore hookup culture. You are shamed. We shame you for doing these things, okay? And then you feel bad. You say, don't shame me. Nah, I'm going to shame you quite a bit. You're a drug-addicted, overweight communist. You deserve all of the shame and derision that one can muster. And I'm not saying anybody should harm them. I'm saying we're going to tell you with our displeasure with you. And the police who want to engage in these practices, I'm going to express my displeasure with them.
No, I think that's a very legitimate point, because I think a lot of the culture in conservative circles for so long has been back the blue, back the blue. The police are always good no matter what. And I understand where that grows from, because this is kind of out of the context of crazy left-wing activists wanting to abolish the police constantly. And, basically their gripe with the police is when the police properly enforce the law, it's bad. That's the left's gripe, right? So that leads us into a position where we're usually defending the police. But it is important to understand the nuance that, while simultaneously, police are enforcement arms of the state, and they usually do a lot of bad things that we disagree with because we disagree with the state. And yeah, we should absolutely apply a culture of shame when we disagree with the actions of the police like that. So I agree with you on that. 100%.
What people on the right don't realize is that this is the principal strategy of the left, which has been for 10 years, and we are now putting it aside because our shame has worked better. So the left played this game of police aren't allowed to come to my coffee shop. They were literally saying, we don't like police in general. You can't buy coffee from me. And they would shame them in public. This was cancel culture. This is how wokeness was being enforced. We have pushed back because boycotts are better in the long run, and it forces these companies to reassess. As for institutional power at the government level, there's got to be a degree of shame. As for healthcare and abortion, there has to be a degree of shame. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.